Okay, good evening. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. There were some questions about the mic, but it sounds okay. Perfect. So 7 years ago when we listed, we were often called the hidden gem on the Isle of Man. And I'd like to think, actually, we're sort of back in that position right now, and hopefully I'll explain that as we go through. No need for introductions to myself and Claire, who will answer all the difficult questions I might add at the end of this presentation. So Strix has a very, very long history for those that you don't know us. They go back to the 1950s, where the technology was used in flying suits for the Air Force, so they could get a higher altitude. And then that transpired somehow into kettle controls. We are very much a technology company. We are providing innovation to brands and OEMs all over the world, with more than 350 active patents at any one time in the company. And I think it's fair to say we have quite a good reputation for quite vigorously defending those patents. As a business, our focus really is on quality, safety, and sustainable products and technology, and we'll show you some of that as we go through. Just a few statistics for people in the room that don't know us very well. Looking at this room here today, more than 80% of you are using a Strix product every single day. Probably don't know it, but you are. Thank you. We are the market leaders in kettle controls, undisputed, I think is fair to say. Our controls are used 1.2 billion times every single day in over 100 countries and by 10% of the world's population. So, pretty impressive, I think, for what is a relatively small hidden gem on the Isle of Man. I've got to remember to turn my slides. Sorry, I forgot that. You didn't want to see my picture, so that's a good one. So let's move to the next one very quickly. So just looking at the company and the structure of the company very quickly, I know I've only got 20 minutes, so I'm going to do this very fast. There's three divisions really to the business. First is kettle controls. Obviously, that is the biggest part of the business, and it's where we sort of started from, back in 1982, actually, when Strix was first founded, even though the technology was older. We do kettle controls. We do a lot of other things as well, although that's the main part. I mean, some of the really diverse things, for instance, this time of year, we actually did 5,000 rotating Christmas trees, believe it or not, using one of our controls. So they can be used for quite a diverse set of applications. We also have a consumer goods division, two brands in that, Leica and Aqua Optima. That's really looking at filtration and health and wellness type products. And the most recent addition at the bottom there is Billy, which is actually multifunction taps, hot taps for some people as you see them. And again, we'll go into some detail about the benefits of all of those separate divisions as we go through. So the market itself, we are in what's called the small domestic appliance market primarily. It is a very interesting market. It's been through a couple of quite tough years. Quite strong when we started COVID, everyone was home in their home office and buying kettles and coffee machines and all those things. And then we had all sorts of strange dynamics in the marketplace. But if we look forward at the moment, they're projecting the SDA market to grow at around 3 to 4% between 24 and 27 on an annual basis. So that's actually quite a positive change in the overall global market. We've set up new distribution in China. That is actually the largest growing market still for the small domestic appliance market. And we also do a lot of work in what they call the health and wellness markets. And currently, McKinsey are projecting a 60% increase in spending from 2024 to 2030. So again, very positive for both the Billy and the Leica brands for Strix. Also, we're seeing lots of changes in people's behaviour. A lot of the supplements are now becoming very popular. So magnesium at the moment seems to be the sort of the magic word. And with Leica, you can actually now get a filter that will add magnesium to your water. Lots of health benefits, including actually improving your sleep. So if you can't sleep tonight, it's not this presentation. You need some magnesium. Sustainability. We have been very, very active or proactive in the sustainability side of the business, and certainly we are seen to be one of the leaders on AIM. Certainly that's the feedback we get anyway, which is very positive. And it's very well proven these days that customers are willing to pay more for energy or cost-saving appliances. And that really is what the Strix innovation is trying to support, as you'll see through some of the things we do today. Return to office, always a little bit of an interesting one. You hear a lot of reports about people not going back to the office. Actually, the trends seem to be accelerating. And in some of the markets, particularly for Billy, including Europe, we're seeing the building utilisation for office space going up by 11% since 2023. So there is a move to that return to office, which is very, very good for both Billy and actually for Leica as well. So if we then move into the various divisions and give you a bit more detail, this is the bit that you're most interested in, starting with the controls. So we have just passed a very significant milestone. If you've been looking at the RNSs, we've actually now produced our 3 billionth control since the history of the company. Had a very big celebration over in China with our OEM partners. We have around 50% of the value share of the marketplace, and that's across the world. So we are selling in China, as well as in the regulated and less regulated markets, as we call them. The business has very, very strong margins, and it's a very cash-generative business, roughly 80% or more cash to EBITDA, so very, very positive. And sometimes we get asked, how do you manage to keep that share and those margins in the business? And what are those barriers to entry? So just very quickly, I'll explain some of those. Really, the important part is we are not just a control supplier. Yes, we sell controls to OEMs who make kettles. Yeah, that's very profitable and very good. But we do a lot of other things. We do a lot of the industrial designs for kettles. So we used to design about a third of all kettles in the marketplace. We do element designs to make sure that they're fit for purpose. We do testing of complete products for brands. We do root cause analysis. So if a customer has a problem, first person they'll phone up is Strix and ask us to go to an OEM and try to fix that problem on their behalf. We do project management for new products coming through as well, and we track all of those products going through. But perhaps one of the most unique things is we do a lot of sales. So if an OEM makes a kettle and puts a Strix control inside it or designs it with a Strix control, we take that kettle for them and we present it to over 450 brands and retailers all over the world. So effectively linking the two and selling it on their behalf, which I've not seen in any other industry sector that I've worked in before. And obviously that's a very, very powerful position given we've got half of the world's market as well. 2 key markets for us worth mentioning are the UK and Germany. Very big markets, very high share in those markets as well. Clearly, those 2 economies have not been great over the last couple of years, so that has given us some challenges, without any doubt. However, we are still continuing to maintain share across those regulated and less regulated markets that we serve. As I mentioned, we work with over 450 brands and retailers all over the world, so there's very few brands we don't talk to, and we work with over 200 OEMs in China and in other parts of the world. Probably worth noting, because I'm sure it'll be a question later on, China today still manufactures more than 93% of the world's kettles. There's not many made elsewhere, to be quite honest, hence the reason we have a brand new factory over in China. So on the kettle side, you question what's next. What do you do with a kettle other than boil water? You can do all sorts of things. So we've just launched a new low-cost control. That was launched in August. That's to target the China markets and the unregulated or less regulated, where there's a lot of copyist-type activity. So that will be helping us to maintain or grow our share in those territories going forward. But the real change is a new control that's coming out, which we've called Next Generation. Not very good with names, I'm afraid. But it is actually quite unique. We're on video, so I'll be very careful what I show you now, but I've got a couple of toys here. This would be a sort of standard element you see in the bottom of your kettle. Well, you don't see it, actually, it's under your kettle. This would be the new one. Obviously, significantly smaller. It could be a little bit cheaper, but I'm not going to talk too much about that. It gives you Bluetooth connectivity as well, and actually it's the same power as something this size. So you can do all sorts of things to actually improve technology. This one has to be made with really sophisticated automation. 80% of our production lines in our factory now are fully automated, and we make a control every 1.8 seconds in our factory. So it is highly efficient in terms of the process. So lots being done. It also opens us up to some other markets as well. So I talked about kettles, but there's things like blenders. There's also healthy eating appliances. This is a new type of kettle, believe it or not. This will actually boil your water very, very quickly. You can have a battery in there if you want to keep it hot as well. So if you want to drive to work and still drink your hot water, you can. Don't let the police see you. This will be a new product coming out in the next 12 to 18 months. Let's say that for now. But very, very well received over in the sort of various fairs that we've taken it to. So lots of activity here. Still lots of areas to grow. If you look at the whole world, it's about a 43-44% global household penetration. So only half of the world today has an electric kettle in their house. So still plenty of growth opportunities there as well. Moving into Billy, acquired in 2022, has to have been the most amazing acquisition ever at the worst possible time in history. We got it for a very low price because the economy was so bad. And yes, it's caused us some pain, but we're actually very, very happy with Billy. It's performing extremely well, as we'll talk on in a second. In terms of what it is, you can sort of see the picture. It's a little bit hard to see that. Effectively, what this is a premium hot water tap. It is a self-contained unit. It's water-cooled. There's no heat coming out. You don't need to have holes in your cabinet or at the back of your work surfaces, so your door's not going to warp after 6 months or 12 months either. It's all digital there, so you can set all the parameters, or the service engineers can do that as well. It is using preheated water. Because it's using a water-cooled system, it captures that heat. And when it refills, when you pour a couple of cups of water out of that system, it refills it with water that's around 65 degrees. So it goes back to temperature very, very quickly, unlike a lot of systems that are using cold water to refill. So yeah, very, very high-end premium system that has been very successful in Australia, UK and New Zealand initially, and now we're looking to expand that elsewhere as well. This year, we've seen some positive moves in new product development. We've only acquired it since 22, so it's taken a little time to ramp it up. There is a new tap system come through, a new base unit gone through. They're all launched in end of Q3. And actually, in November, they've had a record period. So that is going extremely well. Yeah, and we are projecting as a business that we're going to get circa double-digit growth going forward from Billy. Again, similar margins to kettles, so very, very profitable, and actually similar on the cash generation as well, still giving you 70 to 80% cash to EBITDA. So what's next in this? With all sorts of things we're doing with this one. First of all, we want to expand into Europe. By the end of this year, we should have 6 distributors in Europe. I always like to say it's an untapped market, but I don't usually get very good laugh for that. That is going really well. We're starting to see that ramp up coming forward, and clearly it is a huge market for us to go after. We're bringing those new products that were launched in Australia over to Europe and the UK first half of next year as well, so that will help boost that one. And really then it's into new product technology. In Strix, we do all sorts of work with heating technologies. We've got some really quite smart ideas, I say so myself, that will actually allow us to build smaller units, more energy efficient units. Yeah, they can go into commercial or residential type applications in the future as well. So actually quite a significant opportunity as we start to get that development going through the organisation. And last but not least, on the division side, consumer goods. This one has seen a lot of change in the last 12 to 18 months, had a very significant restructure, really to make sure that we are focusing on what are the profitable growth opportunities. Range of products, everything from filtration to water appliances, baby formula systems, so quite diverse. Some very strong private label agreements in place with major coffee brands and also some of the baby brands. I won't say the brands. If you talk to me over coffee, I'll tell you who the brands are. But no, they've been very, very popular for us. And again, it's got a long history. Leica actually celebrated its 50-year anniversary at the beginning of this year. So a lot of history there and a lot of expertise within the technology as well. So again, what's next in terms of consumer goods? First of all, we've just launched some new coffee filters for different types of products and different brands. So that's a new addition. We really are now focusing on the OEM products. We are actually now producing one of the major appliances for a leading baby brand in our China factory. So that started actually in Q4 of this year. So we'll get the full impact of that next year. And we're actually developing new products for brands as well that will launch in the middle of next year. Quite different from what we've done with some of the kettle controls as an example. But we are effectively a very, I would say, a very good Western factory operating in China, which actually for many brands is actually very powerful. And we are getting a lot of brands coming to us saying, can you help us, support us in China? We've also got some good retail contracts coming through, some incremental ones that come into 2025, so they'll start to ship in Q1 of next year. So all of that restructuring now is starting to deliver some benefits as we move into next year. And we will be launching Leica into the UK. Anybody goes into Tesco's in the next couple of days will actually see the new branding that it should be at the end of aisles by the end of this week, at least in Tesco's, supporting the Leica brand. So current trading. This has been a challenging year for Strix, and anybody who's been following us will have seen some of that on the RNSs and so on. We have gone through a rebase. Claire joined us now back in February. She's taken a forensic review, I think is the right way we describe it, of what we're doing. And we've made some very positive changes, but it's definitely been a rebase and also quite a significant restructure in parts of the business to make sure we are focusing on those profitable areas. And we put an RNS out a week or so ago saying that our range for the year is going to be between 18 and 19 million PBT on a constant currency basis. From a balance sheet point of view, a lot of work's been done to get the debt down. I mentioned Billy. That did take our debt quite high at the time because of the macroeconomics. Yeah, we got that down to sort of the circa 2 times now, which is much more acceptable level. And with our sort of cash generation, that's a very comfortable level for Strix to be in. We've also made a number of changes to the senior leadership team. Claire has joined us. We've got a new person who's driving the KETL and the Billy team there as well. We've also strengthened the Billy team over in Australia to make sure we've got the right people for our growth ambitions going forward. And the debt will actually remain a priority for us. We've sort of communicated to the market we want to keep our leverage between the 1.5 and 2 times. That's the area where the market tends to see it being most comfortable. And reflecting our confidence in sort of underlying business, we have now restated our intention to bring back the final dividend for 24 for payment in 2025. That was actually paused for a 12-month period during 2024. So let's just look at how we compare with some of our peer groups. And it's always very difficult to find a peer group for a company where there's only actually two players in the markets outside of China. But we do try and get some of these peer groups. And this is really looking at the operational benchmarking of the businesses themselves. And I think what you can see here, apart from revenue, where we've had a rebase year and we've deliberately actually pulled away from some of the areas, you can see from an EBITDA margin and return on capital employed, we are actually performing well above our peer groups, in fact, in these positions. And even when you look at what are perceived to be the high-quality industrials, we're certainly on a par with those high-quality industrials. And I think the real interesting part is this shows us in the upper quartile from an operational point of view. But if you move over to the valuation slide, you see quite a different picture. And when you compare those, you can see it's very evident, whichever metric you look at in this particular slide, we are currently valued in the bottom quartile. I did write on my little notes here for now, but we'll leave that. But yes, it's definitely at a very different value compared to the performance of the business. And really, it's that disconnect that we believe sort of illustrates why this is actually a very positive time for an entry point within Strix. And hopefully you'll be able to see that. I think the packs are being distributed as well. So in terms of the investment case, highly generative cash business, I say 85% cash to EBITDA on average over the years. We have a very dominant market share. You're the market leader in the kettle side of the business. Your Billy is number 2 in the commercial side for the hot taps as well. Very diversified. We're selling to over, our products are being sold into, I should say, over 100 countries worldwide. We're dealing with over 450 brands and retailers, as I mentioned, so very, very diversified footprint, which allows us to move into other segments as well. We do have a very highly experienced management team. I think the range for our management team varies from something like 35 years in the business to less than 12 months. So, extensive knowledge within the business itself. Ahead of our peers in profit performance, obviously I've mentioned the dividend coming back, so I won't bore you with that anymore. At this point, we have said to the market we are not doing any more M&A until we get the debt down below 1.5 times. So we've sort of put that out in the marketplace. Eventually, that will come back in again, but when the time is right, when the cash levels are right as well. And then finally on here, very, very strong ESG credentials. It is something that we look at all the time in the business. All of our new product development is about sustainability, saving energy, and just making lives generally easier when you're using appliances in your home.